ce qui fait une Europe plus indépendante, plus souveraine.
We must move forward together, create a more European NATO.
We are all looking for more independency from American defense.
Europe must become more independent. There is no other choice.
We hear it every day now, from Brussels to Berlin, from Paris to Rome. Politicians telling us that Europe must become independent. Independent in energy, independent in defense, independent in manufacturing. Macron warns against becoming a colony of the powers. Germany's leader talk about strategic autonomy, and the European Commission launches grand plan for sovereignty. And yes, these things matter. If the USA suddenly shifts its priority, Europe needs its own military capacity. If energy supplies are weaponized, we need alternatives. But here's the uncomfortable truth that almost no one in power is talking about. You can have all the tanks you want. You can build all the terminals that you want. You can sign all the defense pacts you want. But unless we build our own version of the 6 American tech giants that we use every day, Meta, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Nvidia, and Apple, the United States will always be above us. Because they know something we refuse to admit. Without their technology, Europe would collapse. Let's name them. Let's understand exactly what we are talking about. First, Meta. It connects 500 million Europeans. Our business advertise on it. Our families communicate through it. Our news organization distribute content on it. If Meta vanished tomorrow, the social and economic fabric of Europe would tear. Small businesses that rely on Instagram for their sales would lose their customers. WhatsApp groups that coordinate everything from school to corporate project would go silent. Second, Microsoft. Look at your screen right now. Chances are you are running Windows. Your workplace runs on Office. So everything depends on this company. Third, Google. You search with it. You store your photos with it. Over 80% European smartphone users run Android, with its Google Maps and millions of apps. European alternatives like Ecosia or Quanta exist, but they still rely partly on Google's infrastructure. Amazon. Not just shopping, Amazon Web Service powers huge chunks of the European internet. When Amazon Web Service went down in October 2025, apps and digital services across Europe, including systems used by European Commission itself, went offline. Think about that. The administration heart of the European Union runs on American cloud system. Nvidia. This one is invisible, but critical. Every major AI model in the world uses its chips. Nvidia controls the hardware that runs for the future. Sixth, Apple. The phone in your pocket, the ecosystem that locks you in. If we talk about Android before, here is competitor. Apple captured more revenue from European customers than any European hardware company ever could. 6 companies, 6 American companies, and together they form the invisible skeleton of the European economy. Let me give you some numbers that should terrify you. According to EU data, Europe's dependence in foreign digital products, services, and infrastructure exceed 80%. 80%! That means 4 out of every 5 Europeans spent on digital technology leaves the continent. American companies alone control about 70% of the European cloud market. Not 20, not 30, 70%. When it comes to AI chatbot, over 80% of European users rely on ChatGPT, an American product. Our data, our conversation, our question, they flow back to California to train algorithms we don't control. And venture capital, Europe gets about 60% of global AI funding. The USA and China divide the rest. This isn't just an economic problem, this is a power problem. The reason this is urgent right now, in 2026, because the rules have changed. For decades, we assumed the United States was a reliable partner. We didn't need our own tech because America was our friend. But recent events have shattered this illusion. When the USA sanctioned International Criminal Court prosecutors last year, those officials lost access to their American cloud accounts. They shut down their accounts, their email, and their payment platforms. American companies complied with American law, and European officials have left alone. I'm not saying that we are in a war against USA. They're still the first partner of Europe, and it will be for many, many years. But here, the question that is reported is for the independency that Europe wants to get in the close future. So any nation that relies on another for critical infrastructure is vulnerable. Period. So what's the solution? Do we need to invent entirely new technology that America doesn't have? No, absolutely not. And here's where we need to learn from China. 20 years ago, China was exactly where Europe is today. The world laughed at them. The New York Times in 2013 called China a country where products like iPhones are made but rarely invented. Time magazine ran an article titled "Why China Can Create Anything." You know what? They were right. China was copying. Xiaomi is literally Apple. Baidu was Google with Chinese character. Alibaba was eBay. Weibo was Twitter. They cloned everything. But here's what happened next. They didn't just copy. They used those clones as a foundation. They built domestic alternatives that gave them a backup. A completely backup system that will let them survive if the American platform disappears. Today, when the USA cut China off from advanced chips, China responded with DeepSeek, an AI model that rivals ChatGPT at a fraction of the cost. When Tesla dominated e-cars, China built BYD, which now challenges Tesla globally. TikTok beats Instagram in download. Temu beats Amazon in e-commerce. China doesn't need American tech anymore. They have their own stuff. Europe doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to do exactly what China did. Build the European version of everything American has. By the way, there are bright spots. The German state recently moved 40,000 accounts and email from Microsoft to open source alternatives. France committed to replace Teams and Zoom with its domestic Visual. This phenomenon is because there is a vision. It's called EuroStack, building a complete European digital infrastructure from chips to cloud to AI. France and Germany just announced a joint task force of digital sovereignty with over 12 billion in private investment commitments. But we need to move faster, because here's the reality. We can talk about military independence, we can talk about energy independence, and we should push both. But unless we build European version of these 6 American tech giants, Meta, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Nvidia, and Apple, the United States will always be above us. Because they know the truth. They know that if they ever really needed to, they could pull the plug. Because that's how power works. And right now, we have given them all the power. We don't need to beat America. We don't need to compare with them in every market. Also because it would be a fiction. We need just a backup, a plan B, a stack of European technology that works well enough that the world and Washington knows that we can stand on our own. Because when they know you have options, they start to listen.